Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. On behalf of Barnard College and Women in Hollywood, it is my honor to welcome you to the 11th Annual Athena Film Festival. Our festival is dedicated to celebrating the stories of bold, courageous women leaders and the filmmakers who bring them to life. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Corey Lucco. I am a programmer and a operations assistant at the Athena Film Festival. And I, of course, want to thank our amazing sponsors because this festival would not be possible without the support of our dedicated sponsors. So please join me in thanking Athena's founding sponsor, the Artemis Rising Foundation, and its CEO and founder, Regina K. Scully, whose visionary leadership makes our work possible. Also, a special thank you to our premier level sponsor, the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, who shares our commitment to showcasing stories of women in science and putting them on screen for you to see. To all of our sponsors, whose names you will see before each film and event, thank you so much for your commitment to challenging our culture to be more inclusive and inspiring audiences in the process. This past year has been a wake-up call, and we were trying to figure out how we wanted to program the festival for this year. And when we were thinking about it, we realized we really wanted to challenge us as programmers to dig deeper into our curatorial minds. So we decided to be curating around 8 different program areas that we thought really responded to our current moment. So the shorts program that you just saw was part of our discovery program, specifically our student discovery program. And in this program, you are able to fall in love with new voices. It's been a really difficult year for filmmakers with theater closures and production halts. But as you've seen here, emergent filmmakers are resilient and the future of the industry is very bright. So thank you so much again for joining us. And I'm excited to introduce our filmmakers who we're going to be talking to. Hi, everybody. So Maya, if you want to kick it off, just talk about what film you're from and what you did on the film.
Yeah, my film is called Yellow Cards for Equal Pay. It's about my high school soccer team's equal pay movement, inspired by the U.S. Women's National Soccer Team's fight for equal pay.
Wonderful. And then Amit?
Hi, my name is Amit Lerner. I was the director, cinematographer, and editor of Pam. Talks about Pam was a 74-year-old retired New York City teacher who defies stereotypes of growing older as she prepares for annual ballet, jazz, and tap recital.
And Catherine? Catherine, I think you're still on mute. You can just hit
Sorry.
No worries.
Okay, my film was called Hallowed Ground. It's about 2 Rochester student orators learning the words of Frederick Douglass, and I was the cinematographer, director, producer.
Amazing. I love how we have a bunch of multifaceted folks on this call, wearing a lot of different hats as you have to when you're starting out and making stuff. So I wanted to ask this to each of you. What brought you to your project specifically? What brought you to this story? Why did you want to tell this story? So Maya, do you want to start off?
Yeah, sure. So I did a story about my high school soccer team that I was actually on. So it was sort of interesting how it all came to be because I was taking videos of the team just to have some fun soccer videos. And then this sort of equal pay movement started to unravel. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got so lucky that I already have all this video together that I can maybe use to create something longer. But ultimately, the U.S. Women's National Soccer Team and like Megan Rapinoe, I'd have to say specifically, their activism and their fight for equal pay. I went and saw they had a ticker tape parade after they won the World Cup in 2019 in New York City. And so I had gone down to New York with a few friends and seen that. And I was like, something about that moment just totally struck me. And I felt very inspired and had gone back and talked to some of my teammates about that. And that was sort of when we decided a few other people had felt similarly. And we thought, we want to do something to support them. And so that's sort of how it was born.
Incredible. That's so exciting. And we'll talk later about like the yellow card specifically. Amit, what about you?
Well, I've known Pam my entire life. She's my grandmother's cousin, and I'm originally from Israel, but I lived in the States a lot throughout my life. So we would always kind of stop in New York on the way to Israel, and we just have a very close relationship with her. And last year, I took a documentary production class, and I was thinking of a subject, and she just instantly came to mind. And then when I kind of talked to her more, and I realized how much she actually dances. I knew she danced, but I didn't know that she danced really 5 to 6 times a week. I didn't know about the recital that she has every year. And just kind of getting more information on that aspect of her life, it just made me really curious, and I really wanted to capture it and kind of give Pam a platform so everyone could see just what like an amazing, charismatic woman she is, and how much she's gone through, because she's really one of the strongest women I know. So just it was really fun for me because I knew her, and it was for me it was a really fun project just to show who she is, but also an opportunity to get closer to her.
Incredible. Yeah, as soon as I saw your film, I told my mom about it because I was like, Mom, because my mom's a dancer and she's also a massive baseball fan. And I was like, Mom, this woman, y'all are connected somehow.
Yeah.
Catherine, how about you?
Well, my film started as my senior capstone project in college for my undergrad. And so we were asked for the capstone project to do a year-long documentary project on any subject. And I knew I wanted to do video. That's always been my interest. But I wasn't sure of the subject matter until I found out about this oratorical contest that takes place in Rochester every year. And it also has a national component to it in Washington, D.C. So I was first told about it from a professor, and then I reached out to students who were in that contest that year, and it sort of unraveled from there.
Wonderful. And as we mentioned in the intro, you know, y'all are all students and like really getting started in filmmaking. And I love talking to new filmmakers because I am also a new filmmaker. And so I would love to hear just a little bit from each of you about how you found your way to filmmaking and storytelling, you know, because I often find, you know, we all have different journeys. We all want to tell stories, and I feel like we know that, but don't really always know how exactly. So does anyone want to speak to that?
I could start. I started learning film in high school. For me, I always knew that I loved movies and TV shows and all that. And we had this night at school where you get to pick, in Israel, you get to pick 2 majors for high school. And I went to the film one just to hear about it. And it was just kind of like this instantaneous, like I have to like know more about this. I've never had that in my life except for that moment, I think. And yeah. And the more I kind of, ever since then, I kind of like knew that this is the path that I wanted to be on. And even in high school, my teacher taught documentary filmmaking, and that's when I really got into documentary as well. But for me specifically, what I love about documentary filmmaking is that a lot of times you can capture someone's story, and to them, that story, you know, it's their life. It's like, it's not special to them, but once you make it a cinematic experience and they're able to see themselves through someone else's eyes, that to me is just the most amazing ability to take a story and make it that for someone. I really saw that when Pam and her partner, when they viewed the film, that to me was like the best part of the whole process, just seeing their reaction and seeing how much it meant to them. So for me, documentary filmmaking that's what I strive for every single time, is to kind of create something that's special for someone else.
That's incredible. That must have been such a wonderful experience of her really being able to see herself, you know, through your lens. That's wonderful. Maya or Catherine?
Yeah, I feel like that was such a great response. Just to piggyback on that, I totally agree. And I think like that sort of feeling of like being able to finally show your film to an audience is sort of addicting. Like once you do it once, I think I was totally hooked. And I was like, you know, watching people see something that you've worked on for so long and being able to like, you know, have them start with a certain mindset at the beginning of the film and then have that change at the end. It's sort of, and being able to watch that happen. it's definitely just a special experience that I think I kind of got hooked on. Same time, kind of early in high school, I started just becoming interested in the storytelling aspect of video. And yeah, I think I've been hooked on it ever since.
Very cool.
Same as both the others. I also got started in high school, and initially I wanted to focus on photography, and that's why I went to school for photojournalism initially. And in that program, we also learn how to do video as well. So I also developed my interest in that during college. And I find that there's just so much more that you can do in video that can't be communicated in a photograph. You can hear the voice of the person and the way that things are juxtaposed together in the edit just feels different than just looking at a singular moment. Both have their strengths, but I felt like after taking so many photographs that I was still trying to grasp onto the how and the why of a story. And I feel like that it can be really well communicated in video.
Mm-hmm. So Catherine and Amit, both of you were cinematographer. Actually, all of you were videographers or cinematographers on your films, right? So what was that experience like, being the cinematographer and the director, and, you know, sort of balancing that, but then also having the control to sort of get the shots that you want? How was that on set?
For me, it was kind of more out of a necessity because I didn't want to intrude on the dance classes too much. I really wanted to get as much footage as I could. So I thought it would be better if I was the only person there. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the times I have an idea of what I want the shots to look like. But once I have the camera in my hands, I make kind of decisions as I go. And I find that if someone else is filming for me, I don't have that ability as easily because I want to give them their space. But I really enjoy having the camera in my hands because I'm just able to play with it a lot more as if someone else were doing it, because documentary is so different from narrative that you just got to flow with it and see what happens and switch it up as much as you can. So I enjoy it, but it does get tiring at some point. I think at some point my hands started shaking because I didn't use like a steady cam and all that, but I really like it.
That's wonderful. I like that idea of, you know, being able to have this ability to quick change, you know. Maya and Catherine too.
Yeah, and in terms of the role that I took in my film, I was kind of a one-man band. I also edited everything too, so it was really difficult to kind of switch between the mindset of right now I'm filming and I'm not editing. It's kind of two different mind processes. It's like in the editing stage, you're analyzing everything.
Right.
Much more, you're just much more analytical. And then when you're shooting, you're just kind of collecting everything. You're not sure what's going to be in the final edit. So I had to kind of just be in a free state of mind when I was shooting and not get too much editing in my head. But I would start to edit in my head too, because at some point, a few months into it, I started to have a more clear idea of, okay, I really need this shot because I've already seen the edit and I know that it's missing. Yeah. But at the very beginning, you really don't know. So you're just kind of like, all right, I'll just get this shot and I'm not even sure what this is yet. Yeah. So it's definitely a balance.
That's difficult, but also like kind of freeing, I think. You know, there's this abundance in the shooting process that you don't necessarily have in the edit. But you don't want to overanalyze the kinds of stuff that you're looking at before you get it onto the edit bay. I think that's really interesting. Yeah. And Maya, you were sort of shooting beforehand just for other reasons, and then we realized that there's a bigger story there.
Yeah. I was in a similar boat too, sort of doing everything. And I think I almost had the opposite problem of like not analyzing what I was shooting enough. And just, I like editing, but it's definitely not my favorite part. So I like sort of like being there and shooting and being in the moment, especially in documentary when like, you don't really know what's going to happen. So like, you got to be able to turn on a whim. So yeah, I think, you know, it'll definitely be a goal for next time for me to pay a little bit more attention to that and think of myself in the editing room while I'm shooting. But yeah.
Everyone
That's
has
for
a
later.
So Amit, I wanted to specifically talk to you about Pam because she's such an electric and just a magnetic subject. And so I'm wondering how you approached, bringing that through on camera, or if she just sort of shines through regardless.
I think with Pam is that she really just shines at any moment. I was thinking of even crediting her as like a producer because she was like helping me with every single thing. It was like the best she talked to all her teachers. She just like brought me along. I had to do like half the work that I was expecting to do. But I think my challenge with Pam was more of trying to get that vulnerable side of her because she's not closed off. She'll talk about things very plainly and bluntly, but that's kind of her personality of just kind of being straight and to the point. And I wanted to maybe draw something a little bit more gentle out of her that maybe she doesn't show people very easily. But I think at first she was a little hesitant. She didn't know like why I was making this film. She's like, why me? I'm boring. I'm this, I'm that. But I think the more the camera was on her, she just like shined even more, and she just kind of got used to it, I think, at some point, which was great for me because I was kind of scared that maybe once the camera would be on her, she wouldn't be her usual self, but I was really happy to see that wasn't the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And Maya, I wanted to see if we have any updates on Yellow Cards for Equal Pay. What's going on with the soccer team? Are they still moving forward? Or I know obviously COVID has changed the way high school and everything works, but I was wondering if there was, anything new.
Unfortunately, the updates with the actual national team's lawsuit did not, the last update was not great, unfortunately. Right. Trying not to get discouraged by that. But, despite that, it was sort of cool to see our high school team was able to start a equal pay fund with the Vermont Women's Foundation. So we're trying to put that money back into getting girls into sports locally and looking at what programs we can help support with that. So it's sort of, even though there was an unfortunate outcome with the national team, we're sort of just looking at what we can do locally and keep going with that despite what they have going on, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep moving and, keep doing the grassroots local work. Absolutely. And so Catherine, I really wanted to talk to you about how the idea of retelling, so the power of retelling stories, and how you looked at that in your film, the idea of retelling these stories and doing it now, and sort of how you thought about that throughout the process.
Yeah, so the year that I started thinking about my capstone project was actually the bicentennial anniversary of Frederick Douglass.
Mm-hmm.
And he is buried in Rochester, and you can see that in the film. Right. And so the city really lays claim to his legacy. And there's a lot of opinions about that, but there is a crowd that really celebrates him, and they really return to his words a lot. But there's also an irony to that because there is still so much segregation in the city, in the school system. It's still very obvious and prevalent. And that contrast was really what drew me to this event where they were focused on children telling the words of this adult man who was saying some very powerful and radical ideas for the time in history that he was alive. This is post-Civil War and Reconstruction era words that they're speaking. And I found it really powerful, hearing it come from children, just because they are his legacy. And they, in a lot of ways, also, I was trying to find parallels in their lives to what things Frederick Douglass was speaking about and the words that they had chosen to read for the contest. So,
right.
With Tian, who is the boy that I followed.
Mm-hmm.
He had attended a public school first, and then he started attending a private school for his later years of his grade school education. And the speech that he reads, one of them, he reads a few different ones, talks about how Frederick Douglass's daughter had been excluded from an all-white classroom. And I guess to spoil it, because it's
people have already seen it.
Yeah.
No spoiler.
Tien experiences some racist remarks in his white school, mostly white school, private school. And so that moment was really poignant to me, just learning about that from him as we got to know each other more, because this was not really revealed to me until we had already been working together for several months. It was just bringing it full circle for me and really reminding me why retelling is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it also, I think it can be even more effective when you hear something and it feels so relevant to what people are talking about now, and you realize how long ago it was written, and you realize how little progress in a lot of ways there has been. Absolutely. I'm realizing that all of you have really personal connections to these stories. You know, Catherine, are you from Rochester?
No, I'm not. Actually, I'm from the Albany area, still upstate New York. But I lived in Rochester for 4 years for college.
Right. So what was it kind of like? And then, Amit, you knew Pam your whole life, and Maya, this was your soccer team. So what was it like working in those personal settings? Did you feel like you learned something new about the places or the people that you were following?
Yeah, I could go. I think it was definitely special to just while making the film to sort of have the chance to go back and reflect and appreciate sort of everything that had happened in a very, chaotic couple of weeks that I had lived through with all sorts of like crazy, just press stuff and action that, I wasn't really like sleeping at the time. So I was like sort of just like living through it, but never really had the chance to just sort of stop and step back and say, oh my gosh, that really just happened. And so, yeah, I think it was a nice way to do that because, the soccer games happened and all the press stuff happened at, October, November. And then I work on the film for a couple months. So, it was nice. It was a couple months later to be able to, go back and show that to the team after and have that moment together too. So yeah. As well as like we were talking about before, like being a director, producer, editor, all of that. And then also like being somewhat in the film, was definitely a weird role to play. So yeah. I think just having a moment to reflect was nice.
And also it was like it's such a powerful moment in the film when you do all get yellow cards. Like it's just I played soccer in high school and it was just like it was such a moment, but it almost feels like better to be telling people that you shouldn't be doing something because then I feel like you're doing the right thing.
Right.
And Catherine or me, do you want to speak to that at all or?
Yeah, I think for me it was kind of I came into the project without the added pressure of, working with someone new and having to trust someone new because it's filming someone and their personal story is a pretty it's a personal experience. And so I came into the project just knowing I don't have to worry about that because I know Pam and I trust Pam and she really did everything to help me with the film. And it's also at the end of it, it's a shared experience between us and it does bring you closer and it makes you see, I think, the other person, if it's the subject or the filmmaker, even a little bit differently. I made a documentary about my grandfather, and I saw that it had that effect as well on it. And yeah, so for me, I think it's the most fun for me to make a film about someone that I know just because of those reasons.
That's really special. Love that. And Catherine, you were saying that it was an opportunity for you to understand more about the sort of complicated relationship Rochester has with Frederick Douglass and the school systems as well.
For sure, yeah. I had been hearing a lot that year, the bicentennial anniversary year, about Douglass, but I didn't really know that much about him. So a lot of the learning came during the actual filmmaking process. So
Right.
it was just interesting to meet all these different people in the city who were connected to him in some way.
Right.
I actually initially was making a picture story about this woman who, Olivia Kim, she's a sculptor. She was commissioned to make 13 statues of Douglass out of fiberglass and place them in different historical sites in the city. And that was a huge undertaking, and there was a lot of volunteers. And that was kind of my introduction to just how important the legacy was to different people in the community. So I met a lot of people there too, and through different events that were around the anniversary year. So getting to a more intimate look at that with the students that I worked with definitely offered a different perspective than just the public facing events.
Right. Absolutely. That's I think these are all really just, I love these projects. They're incredible projects. And I think that you really get a deep sense of the community and of the subjects from them. And it's wonderful to hear sort of how that came back to you as the filmmaker. So that is all the time that we have today. But thank you so much for sharing your films with us and your stories, and for talking with me today. And thank you for being part of the Athena Film Festival.
Thank you.
Thank you.